What's up, everyone? Thanks for coming back to the channel. This is just a little voiceover about my Atom build from about a year ago. This is just a little bit of a walk around of the original chassis. So as you can tell right here, I was just watching Zach weld up a little bit on the back gussets for the lower control arms. It was a complete headache trying to figure out how to do the gussets, get the control arms square, find out if we need to put any caster in them. Come to find out, we should have put a little caster in the fronts right here. We were able to do that with the control arms ourselves, but knowing what we know now, it would have been a lot easier to put like a 6 or 8 degree lean from front to back on the front control arms to give us the exact caster we need. But all in all, it still turned out great, and I'm very happy with it. You can see the large tubing is 2 1/4 OD 120 wall. Could have went a little thinner, but I'm going to be driving this thing on the street. I already have been, and you don't want to smack a guardrail or another vehicle with some 083 and it wad up on you. I'd rather it absorb a lot of the impact and hold intact and not cut my legs off. So, you know, it is a little tube chassis car. It's not designed by the same crumple zone, or like the same crumple zones from a factory car. You can see we got the upper control arm attached right here, and it turned out great, centered as could be, easy, no binding at all. It actually turns really well, as you'll see later, but it was Then if you notice right here, we had both upper and lower control arm on. We were using the jack just to check overall travel and binding, and to be honest, there was 0 binding, and there was way more travel than we ever anticipated. I believe 7 inches of travel or something along those lines, and it just moved seamlessly. We were really happy with it, and this is the first time we'd ever built anything like this, so to do how good we'd done, we were happy. Then come over to the passenger side, and you can see the upper control arms done. We'd actually built a jig to make sure they were symmetrical for the left and the right side for uppers and lowers. And then we started to notice something. The driver's side rear was perfectly square with the front, but the passenger side rear, the axle was way too short, 5 or 6 inches. And so I knew I was going to have to get a custom axle built, and hopefully somebody could do it in a reasonable time. We found out later they couldn't. So we started trying to figure out what to do for then, because we really wanted to be able to drive it at Zach's, but that just didn't happen, sadly. So this was my last night up at Zach's for the winter, and we wanted to check the turning radius, and we got the steering rack on, and the turning radius was amazing with the steering rack, and it moved seamlessly. There was no binding in anything, and all in all, we were super happy with it. Later to find out that rack had a ton of play in it. It's something I'm going to have to replace very soon, but that just is what it is as you're learning as you go. And fast forward to springtime, Zach's up here welding up the front push rods for the cantilever suspension, and we're so ready to roll this thing out for the first time outside. Turbo kit's welded up, motors all in, rear suspension's done, and it's time to roll it out. And right here is the very first look, rolling it out the door. He pushed it out for me, and it was just amazing to see it come through those doors. After 5 months of super hard work, it was ready. Decided to do a little walk around up at Zach's. He's got a beautiful place, and tell you what, he did an amazing job for me. This car is top notch. It was everything I wanted and more. When I got it right here, it still needed the rear suspension done, and it needed a couple small things, but we knew that going into it. But it was time to bring it home. But first, we wanted to drive it. So we hooked it up to his little side-by-side, and he took me on a cruise around his lot. and it was great just being in the car, driving it, praying that I didn't run into him, but just being behind the wheel of something that was built from the ground up was something you really, really hope for as a fabricator and as a car guy, to have something one off and that you put your love and sweat and tears into. And then here I am home with it. Got the front suspension on, rear suspension on, coilovers that is. Doing the lower test fit for some body panels. Doing a little bit of a walk around, realizing this is coming together and it's almost ready to drive down the road. And learning everything I did through this build, you have to know getting into it that you have to love it or be crazy, or it will make you go crazy. Learning what to do and figuring out and knowing that not everything is going to go the way you want. But I tell you what, it's been well worth the time and money, and it's a great car to have and drive. And Zach, I really appreciate it, man. As always, you kill it. Love you, brother.